Hey guys, I'm Alex. Tonight, we're diving into the servant who declined freedom 3 times, a slow, meditative story about what it means to be free, and why some of us never walk through the open doors right in front of us. Welcome to Stillness and Strength channel, my quiet little corner of the internet where we breathe, reflect, and return to what truly matters. The world may not be yours to control, but your mind, that's your kingdom. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. I love knowing who's on the other side of this quiet night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You notice it again tonight, the door, slightly ajar. The wood is worn smooth at the edges just the way your hand remembers it. No bolt, no iron latch, no sound of keys in the hallway, only silence. You sit where you always sit, by the hearth, facing the stone floor, your legs folded beneath you like a well-practiced habit. Outside the small window, the sky is melting from silver to black, stars slipping quietly into their places. You don't move. This isn't the first time the door has been left open, nor the first time you've stayed. You tell yourself, perhaps it's a test, but deep down you know better. No one watches, no one stops you, not anymore. You once believed yourself a prisoner, but the cell has disappeared little by little over the years. First the heavy lock, then the guards, then the orders shouted from corridors, until one day the only thing left holding you here was you. And even that you're not sure how to name anymore. So why do you stay? Maybe it's the fire, its warmth, its predictability, or the gentle sound of the walls creaking in the night, familiar, almost kind. Maybe it's the way the floor remembers your footsteps, the way the air carries the scent of the same dry wood year after year. Or maybe it's the fear, the old, quiet fear that has no shape, only a presence. You can't quite call it fear of punishment. It's something older, fear of choice perhaps, of walking out and realizing you never knew who you were outside this place. Your mind drifts to a phrase the master once said, "A man can be free even in chains, and chained even in freedom." You'd nodded politely, but you hadn't understood, not then. Now it echoes. If freedom is just the absence of command, you already have it. If freedom is movement, the door offers that, but if freedom is clarity, then perhaps you're still waiting. You ask yourself, what if I walk out and find nothing? What if I regret leaving? What if this quiet room is still better than the chaos outside? And then the real question slips in, silent as breath. What if I've become afraid of freedom itself? The Stoics spoke of proherses, the inner faculty of choice. Not the freedom to go where you wish, but to think rightly, to choose rightly, to be free, not from a place, but from illusion. You look back at the door, it hasn't moved. It doesn't lure you or threaten you, it simply waits. And that waiting, that stillness begins to feel like a mirror. You think of Epictetus, once a slave himself. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." You've always taken orders, but now, when none are given, you still wait for them. And that reveals something more difficult to face. Obedience is no longer an external command. It has sunk beneath the skin. You sit with that. Maybe the first step isn't to walk out the door. Maybe the first step is to ask why you haven't. And so tonight you don't move, but something shifts. Not in your feet, not in the door, but in the part of you that watches thought and begins to question it. A breeze passes through the open frame. It carries the scent of something green and far away. You close your eyes, and in that stillness a quiet thought forms. I am not trapped. I am afraid. You don't need to solve that yet, you just need to admit it. And in that honesty there's a kind of lightness. Not yet flight, but maybe the twitch of a wing. You hear the master's voice. It isn't loud. Not commanding, not like the years before. It floats in from the hall, a simple question, almost gentle. Would you bring the tea? And like breath, like reflex, you rise. The tray is already waiting where it always is. The teapot, the same one you've polished for a decade. The steps to the study, memorized without effort. You move as if drawn by invisible strings, even though you know now they are only memory. The master doesn't even look up as you enter. He's older, thinner, but his posture remains dignified, his presence undiminished. He's writing, as always. Letters, ledgers, words you're never asked to read. You place the tea without a sound, bow lightly, and wait. "Sit if you like," he says without lifting his eyes. You do, not because you must, but because it's what you've always done. Because silence feels easier than deciding otherwise. He finally looks at you and smiles. There's nothing cruel in it. But something stirs in you all the same, a strange unease. "You've served me well," he says, "and there's no need to continue unless you wish." You nod again, out of habit, and he returns to his papers. The room is quiet except for the scratching of ink and the ticking of the old wall clock. You study him. There was a time you feared him, then a time you respected him. Then, somewhere in the space between those, you began to see him as human. And now, perhaps something more unsettling, you see he's just like you, bound not by force but by story, playing out the roles written long ago with no one left to demand they continue. You ask yourself, if he's no longer my master, then who am I to him? And who am I to myself? The Stoics warn of role attachment. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You are a soul carrying a corpse." Meaning, you are not your profession, not your habits, not even your name. But how often do we live as if the opposite were true? You take a breath, deep, slow, grounding, and for a moment you imagine answering differently, saying, "No, I will not serve today." Not in defiance, not in bitterness, just in clarity, but the words never come, not because they are forbidden, but because something inside you still fears their weight, the unfamiliar space they would create. So instead, you lift the empty tray and return to the kitchen. The master doesn't call you back. No thanks, no reprimand, just the continued scratching of pen against paper. Back by the hearth, you sit again. The fire is lower now. And in that quiet, something sharp flickers through you. You've obeyed a voice that no longer commands. And that is perhaps the heaviest chain of all. The ones we carry voluntarily. The ones built not of iron but inertia. Seneca once warned, slavery resides not in the external condition, but in the soul that bows before it. You bow without thinking, and that more than any door or wall is what has kept you here. A gust moves through the corridor. The door creaks faintly. You look toward it as if expecting another summons. There is none, and so you ask yourself softly, what is obedience without necessity? Is it virtue, or is it fear in disguise? There is no answer yet, only the question. But tonight that might be enough. The smell drifts in first, sweet, rich, familiar, roasted figs, honeyed bread, spiced wine. It's a feast, a rare one, a celebration you don't quite understand. But this household, even in silence, observes its rituals. You're not summoned to prepare the food, not asked to clean or serve. Instead, a younger servant, one you barely recognize, comes to you and says, "The master wants you at the table." You blink slowly. Surely he meant something else. The table has never been for you. You've always eaten alone, in the shadows of the kitchen, by the cooling hearth, from a plate that bore no silver. That was your place, undisturbed, unspoken, unquestioned, and now an invitation. You stand, but your legs feel uncertain, as if they belong to someone else. The hallway to the dining room feels longer than usual, wider, like it's stretching just to test you. And when you reach the table, you hesitate. The seats are set with embroidered cushions. The light is soft, candlelit, everything is still. And there, a space left for you, at the master's side. You remember this scene in stories, of servants elevated, of bonds broken, of freedom granted in symbolic gesture. But this doesn't feel like honor, it feels like discomfort. You sit slowly, no one says anything. The food is passed. You take a little of each, unsure of the etiquette. The master nods toward your plate, a faint smile playing at his lips, but you can't taste any of it. The flavors blur together. Your body eats, but your mind, it wanders. Back to your quiet corner, the stone floor, the simple bowl, the silence you understood. There was peace there, not joy perhaps, but certainty. a rhythm you knew how to dance with. This place, this table, it feels exposed. As if sitting here, being seen, being honored, somehow strips you of something private. You are no longer invisible, and strangely, that unsettles you more than chains ever did. You think of the Stoic teaching. We must learn to want nothing too much, neither exile nor favor, neither feast nor famine. You have lived a life of less, and now that more is offered, you feel no freedom in it, only noise. Perhaps the discipline of poverty has given you a certain clarity, and this luxury, while not unwelcome, muddies the mind, stirs appetites you've long buried. You remember a time when you wished for this seat, when you looked through the kitchen door at the laughter, the wine, the warmth. You thought freedom was a place at the table. Now you know it is not. Freedom is not being invited. It is being untouched either way. To accept or decline, not from fear, not from hunger, but from stillness. You push your plate away unfinished, and no one protests, not the master, not the others. The moment passes like wind over still water, noticed but not grasped. You stand, bow gently, and leave, not rushed, not defiant, just quietly resolute. Back in your small room, the simple bench welcomes you like an old friend. You sit, and for the first time in years you feel full, not in your stomach, but in your mind. You ask yourself, if the world offered me everything and I still chose simplicity, what does that make me? There is no applause for this question, no audience, only you, and the slow comfort of knowing you can now say no, not because you must, but because you can. Morning comes quietly. You rise before the sun, not because you're required to, those days have long passed, but because stillness calls you more deeply now than sleep ever did. The courtyard is cold beneath your bare feet. The stone breathes with the night's last breath. Above, the stars are beginning to fade, chased westward by the soft bloom of dawn. And as light stretches across the roof tiles, you begin your practice, not of labor, not of service, but of presence. You sweep the courtyard, not because someone asked, but because it clears the space in your own mind. Each stroke of the broom becomes a meditation, a return to what Epictetus called the sphere of what is up to us. You can't stop the seasons. You can't bend time, but you can choose how you greet each moment. And this one, this morning, this breath, this sweep of the broom, belongs wholly to you. The younger servants stir inside. You hear muffled footsteps, soft chatter, the clink of utensils being set in place. They don't bother you. They don't instruct you. They look at you now and then with curiosity. Some of them weren't even born when you first arrived here. To them, you are part of the house, a fixture like the old fig tree or the cracked well basin. But you've changed. Even if they don't see it, you feel it. You're not cleaning anymore to serve. You're cleaning to stay awake. The Stoics say, first tell yourself what kind of person you want to be. Then do what you have to do. You didn't always know what kind of person you were. You shaped yourself around commands, around roles, around what others needed from you. Now the need is inward, subtle, quiet, but real. The sun breaks the horizon. Warmth pours in slanted through the garden gate, casting long shadows, and in those shadows you pause, a memory rises. You as a young boy standing behind your father mimicking his movements. He was a potter. He shaped clay with hands calloused by time, and you wanted to be just like him, until soldiers came, until that day, until your name was no longer yours. You close your eyes, that memory used to burn. Now it flickers gently like a candle too tired to rage. You are not that boy anymore, but you carry him. And in carrying him without bitterness, you begin to become something more whole. A light wind carries petals from the plum tree across the courtyard. You stop sweeping, just to watch them fall. One lands on your hand, soft, impermanent. A reminder, all things pass, even this house, even these questions, and yet the discipline of living rightly. That doesn't pass. It deepens, with each refusal to indulge resentment, with each choice to respond gently when you could have flared, with each small act of attention. You think of something Marcus Aurelius once wrote, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. You are not perfect, you still hesitate, you still question. But this morning, You rose with intention, you worked with peace, you remembered with compassion, and that's enough. You whisper more to yourself than to the sky, I am no longer a servant to others. I am a servant to truth. The broom rests against the wall, the petals continue their slow descent, and the day begins, not with orders but with clarity. You're in the garden now. Midday. The sun hangs still and white above you, casting no shadow, offering no escape. Yet you remain, kneeling in the dirt, fingers deep in the earth, planting. The seeds are tiny, delicate, and somehow this quiet act, one seed, then another, feels heavier than any labor you once endured. Because no one asked you to do it, because no one's watching, because there is no reward, just soil, just breath, just time. And that is exactly why it matters. The Stoics believed in acting from principle, not from applause. Seneca said, "The reward of a good deed is in the doing of it." So here you are, doing. Your knees ache slightly from the stones under the earth. A bead of sweat slides down your spine. But there is a kind of honesty in discomfort, a directness that calls you into the present like nothing else. You pause to sip water, cool, metal cup, clear taste. It humbles you. And in that humility, you remember something. How many years you lived without choices. How many times your hands moved without intention. How many mornings you worked before you were fully awake. And now, this small, slow cultivation, a garden you may never harvest, that too is freedom. You hear laughter in the distance. The young servants practicing their roles. They are learning how to hold trays, how to bow, how to pour without spilling. You used to teach those things. You don't anymore. You've become something else, not quite part of the staff, not quite a guest, a presence, a witness, perhaps a student of a quieter truth. You press another seed into the soil, cover it gently. The earth does not care who you were. It receives you anyway. You look up. The sky is wide, cloudless. You remember Epictetus's warning, don't ask things to happen as you wish. Wish them to happen as they do, and you will go on well. So you stop wishing for something grand. No release, no new title, no final recognition. Just this moment, this small rebellion of simplicity, in a world chasing more. And in that stillness a thought floats in. What if this garden is not for the house? What if it's not for them at all? What if it's only ever been for you? You smile, a real one, not for show, just for yourself. You place the last seed. Then sit back, breathing deeply. The wind moves through the leaves. The scent of rosemary brushes your senses. Time stretches and bends, and in its quiet curve you feel something that was once rare, enoughness. There is nothing missing, nothing lacking. Not in the soil, not in your heart, not even in the past. And you wonder, if I can be content with this, dirt under my nails, silence in my ears, no praise on the horizon, have I not in some way found the true freedom philosophers speak of? You don't answer aloud. You simply watch a beetle crawl across your wrist. It moves slowly, confidently, knowing nothing of masters or roles or expectations. Just movement, just purpose, just now. You let it pass, and then you go wash your hands. Evening falls like a sigh. The shadows stretch. The sky shifts from gold to ash, and the house begins to quiet. Servants retreat to their quarters. Doors are latched with the soft confidence of routine. And somewhere inside, a lute is being tuned lightly, absent-mindedly, by a hand that does not yet know longing. You step into the atrium barefoot again, the cool marble grounding you. There's a bowl of figs left on a table. You take one slowly. Its skin is soft, slightly wrinkled. The fruit breaks open with ease, a pattern of seeds, a burst of sweetness, fleeting, impermanent, perfect because it doesn't try to last. You think of the Stoics' constant reminder, memento mori. Remember you must die, not as a threat, but as clarity, as mercy. You sit in the courtyard, alone, but not lonely. The stars begin to reveal themselves. First one, then another, until the whole sky is dappled with memory. You've watched this sky your whole life. As a child beside your father's kiln. As a boy dragged across provinces in chains. As a servant scrubbing floors under moons that saw everything and spoke nothing. And now you simply observe, without grasping, without naming, just being. The house behind you still breathes softly like an animal at rest. You feel its warmth at your back, but it no longer contains you. It shelters. It does not define. There's a question you've avoided for years. The one that creeps into your bones when the world goes still. Who are you when no one is asking anything of you? It's a question that once terrified you. Because without your duties, without your title, without your role, you feared there would be nothing left. Just a void, just an echo. But tonight that question lands differently. Because now you have seen the space beyond obligation. And you know. You are not empty, you are simply quiet. There is a self beneath the servant, a soul beneath the schedule. And that soul is not made of chains or commands. It is made of attention, of discipline, of gentle rebellion. The rebellion of a man who can be asked to sit at a feast and still choose a bench in the garden. The rebellion of someone who doesn't need to be free to know that he already is. You rise. There's a ritual you've begun on your own, a small act, unnoticed. Each night you walk the perimeter of the house, not to inspect, not to guard, but to bless it in your own quiet way. One breath per step, one thought per turn. Tonight's thought is simple: let me not mistake comfort for freedom. Because you've seen both, and you've learned how easily they are confused. Comfort can bind you just as tightly as duty. Freedom, real freedom, comes not from ease but from clarity, from knowing what you can let go of, and what you must not. You pass the old olive tree. Its bark is split, gnarled by time, but it bears fruit still. You place a hand on it, rough, alive. It doesn't move, doesn't bend, but it holds something, something ancient, something like surrender without weakness. You pause there for a while, no need to rush. No one is waiting for you, no bell will ring. And that too is a kind of grace. The Stoics say, no man is free who is not master of himself. Tonight you feel that truth settling in your chest, not as pride, not as finality, but as a seed, a small, round certainty. You are no longer ruled by what others offer you. Not food, not favor, not freedom. You have begun to choose, and perhaps that's all that was ever required. A letter arrives the next morning, folded neatly. Sealed with wax you recognize, a crest from the city you haven't visited in decades. You hold it in your palm, feeling its weight. It's light, yes, but heavy with history. You don't open it right away. Instead, you sit beside the fountain, its water murmuring like a soft old friend. You watch the birds drink. You listen to the leaves rustle with secrets you'll never need to know. Finally, you break the seal. It's from the magistrate's son. He writes with the polite formality of someone raised to expect answers. He is offering you something, or rather returning it, your manumission, your legal release, your final freedom. A gift long delayed, no strings attached, no ceremony required, just a signature and it's done. You set the letter down, and you smile, not because you're overwhelmed, not because you're eager, but because the moment is strange, quietly absurd. You are already free. And yet here is paper saying it's only now official. What power that piece of paper holds in the eyes of others, not in yours. You remember how badly you once longed for this, how you dreamt of release like a man dreams of water in a desert. But thirst has taught you patience, and in your waiting something shifted. You stopped begging the world to unchain you. You started unchaining yourself. The Stoics would nod at this irony. They knew well that the truest prison is internal, and likewise the deepest liberty is self-wrought. It is not things that disturb us, but our judgments about them. Epictetus taught, you no longer judge your station. You simply inhabit it fully, honestly, without complaint. Now this letter comes like a late guest to a celebration already ended. Polite, useless, almost amusing, you think. If I am free only because someone finally allows it, was I ever free at all? And there's no bitterness in the thought, only observation. So what do? You walk, out through the gate, down the path lined with wild thyme. You reach the edge of the hill that overlooks the town. It's quiet here. The rooftops are just outlines in the haze of morning. You sit on a stone worn smooth by weather and time, and you breathe. No decision yet, no rush. The wind picks up slightly, tugging at your sleeve. You let it, Let it all happen, without resistance. You remember a saying, "He who is brave is free." And you wonder, what exactly have you had to be brave about? Not battles, not glory, but facing the slow erosion of dreams, day after day, without bitterness. Watching others leave while you stayed behind and choosing to stay awake anyway. Finding meaning in repetition. Discovering dignity in silence. That's its own kind of courage, and perhaps the most overlooked kind. You pull the letter from your pocket once more, read it again. The ink is neat, the offer sincere, the release total, but in your heart there is no urgency. You realize. This letter is not an escape, it's a mirror. A mirror showing you what has already happened long before pen touched paper. You are free, not because you will sign, but because you no longer need to. Still, the question lingers gently. Will you accept it? Will you leave? You fold the letter again, place it back into your pocket. There's no answer today, and that too is a choice. Days pass. The letter remains in your pocket unread again, not forgotten, just unimportant. Life flows on, quiet and undemanding. There are figs to pick, herbs to dry. A stray cat has made the kitchen its home, curling beneath the stove with the casual sovereignty of creatures who know they owe nothing. You find yourself speaking less, not out of withdrawal but from fullness. There is less need to name everything, less hunger to be heard. You listen more, to the silence between footsteps, to the small creaks of wood in the night, to your own breath, steady, faithful, patient. Each morning you rise before the others. You step outside to greet the dawn, not with words but with stillness, just watching light return. It's become a ritual now, a kind of invisible prayer. You face the east, hands open at your sides, and for a moment you surrender every idea of who you should be. And there, in that emptiness, you are most alive. The Stoics taught that the soul is most at peace when it lives in accordance with nature. And nature does not rush. It does not perform. It simply becomes. You too are becoming. Not someone else but more fully yourself. One morning, a younger servant, a boy just past 16, finds you in the garden. He watches you for a while silent, then asks, "Weren't you going to leave?" You look up, the boy's eyes are honest. No judgment, just curiosity. And something in you smiles. You tell him, "I already left." He blinks, confused. His mouth opens, then closes. You say no more, because there is nothing to explain. The truth doesn't always need defending. Sometimes it only needs living. Later, alone again, you consider what you said. Was it true? Yes, because leaving isn't always about doors or distance. Sometimes you leave by shedding what no longer fits. You walk away from illusion, from noise, from the need to be seen as anything at all. You think of Socrates, offered escape from prison, yet choosing to stay. Not because he loved confinement, but because his soul was not for sale. He said, "The unexamined life is not worth living," but you suspect there's more. That perhaps the examined life is not just about questions, but about a certain slowness, a willingness to dwell in the questions without needing them to resolve. And so you dwell. One evening a guest arrives, a philosopher from the city. He's old like you, but full of fire still, always speaking, always asserting. He hears of your situation and laughs. "Why haven't you left?" he asks. "The world is wide, surely you want to see it." You pour him wine, let him talk, let him advise, but you do not answer. Later that night you walk alone again. Past the olive trees, past the unused gate. You place your hand on the latch, feel its cold metal, and still, you do not open it, because what lies beyond is no longer temptation. It is simply another path, one that may or may not call to you. Freedom is not about having options, it's about not needing them. The wind is cool on your face. You lean into it and ask the sky softly, "If no one ever sees the life I've built, if there is no audience, no reward, does that make it any less real?" The answer comes not in words, but in breath, in the beating of your heart, in the soil beneath your feet. And you know, you've been walking toward freedom this whole time, not outward, but inward. Rain comes, not with thunder or fury, just a soft, steady fall that hushes the land. It drums gently on the roof tiles. slips down the stone walls like old tears finding their way home. You rise early as always. Step outside with bare feet. The ground is cool. The air carries the scent of wet earth and rosemary. You tilt your face upward. Each drop is a reminder you are alive. Here, now, you do not shield yourself, there's no need. What is rain if not a return? What is discomfort if not a teacher? The Stoics knew this well. Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually does. Then your life will flow well. This is how you've learned to live, not in resistance, but in rhythm. Later that day, the rain continues. The house is quiet, thick with the kind of silence that invites reflection, not loneliness. You sit by the window. The letter is still in your pocket. A strange companion, not heavy but ever present. You take it out once more, not to decide, just to look. The parchment is beginning to wear at the folds. It's lived in your clothing like a whisper. You think again, what would change truly if I accepted it? You wouldn't be younger. You wouldn't be richer. You wouldn't be more at peace. The only thing that would shift is how others would see you. And perhaps that's the trap, because once you did everything to be seen. As capable, as worthy, as indispensable, you were praised. And in that praise, you lost parts of yourself. Because praise is addictive. And the version of you that people celebrate isn't always the one that's most true. But now, in this quiet house, under this soft rain, you've learned to look inward, to seek fewer witnesses, to let go of performance. You wonder, can I love a life that no one applauds? That question settles deep in your chest. Not heavy, just honest. You sip your tea, it's slightly bitter the way you like it now. You think of the olive tree again, still bearing fruit, still rooted, never asking the sky for recognition. And you realize perhaps your life has become like that tree, not spectacular, but strong, rooted, true. The rain continues. Outside, a servant calls for the cat. Inside, the fire crackles. You close your eyes. There's a warmth inside you now, not of certainty, but of peace. You may never sign the paper, or perhaps one day you will, not out of longing, not out of rebellion, but simply because it will no longer matter. Either way, you're already living the answer. And it is this: you are free when you no longer fear being unseen. The letter disappears one day, not lost, simply gone. You don't search for it. You imagine it slipped from your pocket in the orchard, or perhaps the wind lifted it away as you walked by the river. Maybe the cat curled up with it one night, mistaking it for a scrap of warmth. Where it went no longer matters, and that's the miracle, because once it would have mattered. You would have panicked, retraced steps, scoured corners, cursed yourself. But not now. Now you sit under the fig tree, back resting against its broad trunk, and watch the light move across the grass. Your hands rest on your knees, still, empty. You understand something: freedom doesn't arrive, it dissolves. It doesn't burst in like a soldier kicking down doors. It seeps in quietly like morning light through shutters. You think of how long you waited for someone to set you free. Years, decades. Always thinking freedom came from outside, from permission, from others' decisions. But no one ever truly gives it to you. They can offer paper. They can speak words. They can remove chains. But only you can step out of the mental cell. You remember Epictetus again, once enslaved, then freed, but never really owned by anyone. He said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And you've begun to master the only thing that matters: your reactions, your interpretations, your attachments. The work is slow, invisible, but you see it now in your own stillness. One of the younger women in the household comes to you at dusk. She has questions about fear, about loss, about how to remain strong when everything seems to shift. She sits cross-legged in front of you, holding a chipped clay cup in both hands like a fragile secret. You do not offer answers, not at first. Instead, you ask her, "What is it you think you must hold on to?" She doesn't know. You smile gently, because neither did you once. You tell her a story, your story, of how you were once given a paper that promised release, and how you waited for it like it was salvation. She listens closely. Then you say, "Eventually, I stopped waiting. I stopped expecting. I started living." She doesn't reply, just nods slowly, as if the nod itself were a kind of shedding. The stars come out one by one. The two of you sit in silence for a long while. You realize how rarely you speak of yourself these days. Not from secrecy, but from stillness. Because when the soul is at peace, it no longer rushes to explain itself. As the night deepens, you rise, she thanks you. You place a hand gently on her shoulder. Don't fear change, you tell her. Fear clinging to what wants to pass. Back in your room, you light a small oil lamp. The flame flickers, then steadies, just like you. You don't look for the letter, you don't need its answer, because your life has become your signature. Autumn arrives quietly. No trumpets, no fanfare, just a gradual shift in the light in the air, in the way shadows stretch longer across the ground. Leaves begin to curl, to crisp at their edges. The breeze carries the scent of wood smoke and cool soil. You feel it in your bones, not as sadness but as invitation. Because what is autumn if not a soft letting go? The Stoics spoke often of impermanence. How nothing we possess, no status, no pleasure, no moment belongs to us permanently. How everything we love is merely on loan. And so they taught us to love without clinging, to hold joyfully but loosely. You walk through the orchard noticing what has fallen, figs that fed birds, branches that bent without breaking, a cracked pot someone left beneath a tree now catching rainwater still useful. It reminds you, even what is broken has purpose. Even decay feeds the roots. Later that week, word reaches the house. The master is returning. The young servants react with tension, fixing corners of the house that have long been ignored, straightening their backs, practicing their "yes, sir." But you feel no fear, no thrill, no hurry. He is neither threat nor savior now. You've seen through the veil, and more importantly, you've stepped beyond it. When he arrives, he looks older than you remember, more tired, carrying the weight of success like a burden. He asks to speak with you. You sit together in the garden. He watches you for a long time before saying, "You've changed." You smile because yes, you have, but not in the way he means, not in surface things. Not in your robes, which remain humble, not in your posture, which is still simple and straight. The change is inward, invisible, undeniable. He offers again what the letter once did, your release. Official, immediate. He says it as if it's a gift, as if it should thrill you, but you just look at him calmly, and you ask gently, "What is it you think I need freeing from?" He's quiet, thrown off, because the cage he once built for you now lives only in his memory, not in your reality. He repeats himself, this time slower. You're free to go, anywhere, do anything. You thank him, not out of politeness, but out of clarity, because now you see, he needs to offer this more than you need to receive it. It absolves something in him, it makes him feel kind, and so you let him have that. But in your heart, you know, you've been free since the moment you stopped needing this offer. Later that night, you sit beneath the stars. The sky is bright with cold clarity. You whisper to yourself, freedom is not a door someone else opens. It is the wall inside you that falls. And tonight there are no walls left, only sky, only breath, only now you sip your tea. It's quiet. You are free. The days after his return are strange. He walks the halls like a guest in his own home, pausing at doorways, lingering near windows. You notice how often he looks to you, as if searching for an anchor he no longer holds. There's a hesitancy in his voice now, the kind that comes when a man realizes the rules he once played by no longer apply. Not because the world has changed, but because you have. You serve him still, not because you must, but because there is grace in constancy. You pour his tea, you prepare his simple meals, you answer his questions when he asks them, but the dynamic is different now, not inverted, just softened. He senses it. You are no longer beneath him, nor above, simply beside. One evening he confesses something. There was a time, he says, when I envied you, your steadiness, your peace. You wait, let him speak. But I thought it came from your circumstances, from having nothing to lose. Now I wonder if maybe it came from having nothing to protect. That lands deep, because there's truth in it. The Stoics taught this too. The more you try to keep, the more you fear losing. And fear is the first shackle. But when you carry nothing, no title, no image, no performance, then nothing owns you. He asks you then tentatively, "Do you regret not leaving?" And you answer him plainly, "I never stayed." He furrows his brow, then laughs softly, not because he fully understands, but because he knows you do. You spend that week tending to smaller things. The herb garden needs trimming. One of the shutters has rotted. The cat disappears for 2 days, then returns, wounded but proud. There's a rhythm now, not just in your life, but in your presence. The younger servants come to you more often, not for orders, not even for wisdom, but for something subtler, stillness. You've become, without trying, the quiet center around which the house turns. You do not demand this role, you do not announce it, but they see how you move, how you speak only when needed, how your peace feels not performative but earned. One night, the youngest of them, no more than a boy, approaches you. He's shaking. His father is dying, he says, back in the village. He doesn't know if he'll make it in time. You listen. He asks what to do, what to feel. You want to comfort him, but you know comfort doesn't live in answers, it lives in presence. So you tell him a truth: grief is not a failure of strength. It's proof of love. Let it come and let it pass, as all things do. He nods, tears silently streaming. You place your hand on his shoulder. And in that moment, without title, without power, you understand what it means to be useful. Not because of what you do, but because of who you've become. The Stoics said the best life is one aligned with nature and virtue. No need for applause, no need for recognition. And you feel it now, in the simple offering of your presence. That alignment. The wind rustles the fig leaves. You look up at the sky again. No destination, no arrival, just this: a life lived with gentle discipline, a heart unburdened, a mind unshackled. The years pass and the household changes, not all at once, but in the slow, inevitable way that all things do. Walls crack, paint fades, the master grows older. His hair thins, his hands tremble. He asks for help more often now, and you give it freely, not as duty but as care. New servants arrive, unfamiliar with your story. Some mistake you for a steward. Others call you teacher. You correct no one, because what they call you doesn't change what you are, and what you are doesn't need a name. One day, in the quiet of the afternoon, you find yourself sweeping the back steps. Not because it's expected, just because the dust has settled too thick. You pause mid-motion, the broom still in your hands. There's a feeling. Not nostalgia, not sadness, just a deep awareness that time has been kind to you. Not because it gave you what you wanted, but because it slowly stripped away everything you didn't need. You think of your younger self long ago, the one who waited, who ached, who imagined freedom as something dazzling, distant. If only he knew, freedom wasn't a place to reach, it was a way to be. You finish sweeping, sit for a moment. The sun falls gently across your feet. A bird calls from the cypress. You remember a line from Marcus Aurelius: receive without pride, let go without attachment. Yes, that's the rhythm now. A few weeks later, the master becomes ill, the kind of illness that does not leave. You stay near, quietly, without ceremony. He asks to speak to you one final time. You sit beside his bed. He reaches for your hand. "I always thought you stayed because you had no choice," he says. "But now I think you chose peace. And I don't know how you did it." You don't answer with words. Just hold his hand, steady and warm. He breathes slowly, a man nearing his final exhale, and before he goes, he whispers, "You were never mine to keep." And you nod, because that finally is something you both understand. After his passing, there is quiet. Not grief exactly, just stillness. The house continues. You tend to it. Fewer people now, more silence, but you've never been afraid of quiet, because you've made friends with it. In fact, you've found. The quieter the world becomes, the louder your soul can speak. One evening, as the wind rises through the olive trees, you walk alone. The stars bloom above you. You breathe. You smile. You wonder, if I had taken the letter left when I was first offered, would I have missed this? And the answer comes softly, not as certainty but as peace. Not missed, just not known. Because there are many paths to freedom, but the one you walked through service, through patience, through letting go, led you here, to this exact moment, to yourself. You begin to give more away, not possessions, there are few of those, but habits, roles, the little things that once made you feel necessary. You teach the younger ones how to tend the fire, how to read the weather by the smell of the air. You show them where the olives fall first, and how to know when the tea is ready by the sound of the pot. They watch you with wide eyes, not out of reverence but trust. You find joy in their learning, in their eagerness to carry what you no longer need to hold. And then, one morning, you wake before the sun. The house is quiet, the hearth cold, but there's no chill in your bones. You move slower now, not out of frailty but choice. Every step is deliberate, every gesture simple. You take your cup and sit where the first light touches the stone. And in that silence, something opens within you. Not a revelation, not a vision, just a deep, abiding sense that you have arrived. Not in a place, but in a way of being. The Stoics often warned against chasing the horizon. Always striving, always reaching. Do not waste what remains of your life in speculation, Marcus wrote. Instead of treating yourself with respect, by thinking only of what is in your power, you finally understand what he meant. Your life no longer leans forward. It simply rests. There's a story you recall of a man who climbed a mountain only to find it was always beneath him. That's what this feels like. The freedom you sought in the distance was already here, waiting for you to stop running. Later that day, a visitor comes, a traveler dusty from the road. Word has spread, it seems, of an old servant who became a sage. You invite him in. He expects teachings, aphorisms, secrets. Instead, you offer him tea. You sit in silence. After a time, he asks, "How did you do it? How did you become free?" You look at him for a long moment, and then say, with a gentle smile, "I stopped trying to escape." He looks confused, so you add, "Freedom isn't where you go, it's how you meet what comes." He sits with that, sips his tea, and in the quiet perhaps begins his own journey. That night you walk the path behind the house. The moon is high. The fig tree sways. You touch its bark, old, scarred, but firm, like your own body, like your life. You say aloud to no one, "I was offered freedom 3 times. But I only became free when I stopped needing to be offered anything." And in that moment you feel it, a vastness within you, clear and still. You are not the servant, not the teacher, not the wise one. You are simply yourself. And that is enough. In the final winter, the wind grows quieter, not weaker, just less urgent. The way an old friend no longer needs to fill silence with words. The days are shorter now. The evenings stretch long and dark like velvet across the hills. The fire crackles not to warm you but to accompany you. You still move through the house, still sweep the steps, still sit beneath the fig tree. But everything you do now feels like a bow, not a farewell. Just a deep, humble gesture to the life that has carried you. There's no fear in you. You've rehearsed this moment with every breath you've ever taken. Each morning has been a letting go. Each night, a rehearsal in surrender. You've become fluent in impermanence. One evening, as dusk folds into itself, you sit with a candle and write a single line in your old, steady hand. Freedom is not the absence of chains, but the absence of resistance. You fold the paper, place it in a drawer no one is likely to open, because it's not meant to be found, it's meant to be written. And that too is enough. A young servant brings you warm broth. He watches you carefully, afraid of your stillness. You meet his eyes and offer a smile that says, "All is well." Because it is. That night you fall asleep with the wind at your window and the soft creak of the old fig outside. And somewhere in the deep hours, without sound, without struggle, you slip from this world like breath into the cold air. No ceremony, no fanfare, just stillness. And in the morning the house wakes, not to mourning, but to quiet gratitude. They speak of you not as the one who served, or the one who taught, but as the one who was free. They find the broom beside the steps, exactly where you last left it. They light the hearth in your stead. They carry the rhythm forward not out of duty but reverence, because what you embodied cannot be taught, only witnessed, only felt. And so your presence lingers, not as a ghost, but as a way of being, a calm, a kindness, a clarity. And long after, when someone asks, "What happened to the servant who declined freedom 3 times?" they'll answer with soft eyes, "He didn't decline it, he found it where it had always been." Now as your own eyes grow heavy, as your body sinks into the softness of sleep, remember this.